point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Of course, that's not really true today or any day. We have great people with lots of rational thoughts. And today we've got a very distinguished guest. I got to tell you, I'm very excited to bring on our guest today on the Author Brand Show. Make sure you click below and click the subscribe button. There's some free goodies for people who subscribe, so don't forget your freebies. Our guest today is a native of Chicago, Illinois. And at the age of 15, he and his family moved from Chicago's South Side public housing projects to Allegan, Michigan, where he later graduated in '63 from the high school there. He attended African-American, mixed race, and predominantly white schools, typically living in diverse communities. And after receiving an associate's in arts degree at Kennedy King College, he attended Chicago State University, acquiring a bachelor's degree in geography with a minor in history. There's going to be a lot of interesting stuff about that today. He's worked for more than a decade for a major airline at Chicago O'Hare. In '81, he founded one of the largest minority-owned advertising specialty companies in Southwest Michigan, selling products to major corporations, businesses, colleges, and universities. He has traveled extensively throughout the world. Being semi-retired, he's enjoyed the opportunity to work as a movie extra, motivational speaker, substitute teacher for Chicago public schools. His book series, The Road from Money, it's his first novel. It's based on the true stories told to him by several family members over the years. And what's cool about this, he's woven together fact and fiction into a dynamic portrayal of historical events of the era. Sounds like Forrest Gump, including music, inventions, and the journey of a young Negro girl from her family living under the trying times of Jim Crow in the South. So without further delay, let's welcome our guest today, Sylvester Boyd. Sylvester, it's good to have you on the show today, sir.
Thanks for having me, Doug. I appreciate it.
Wow. So you've had an amazing background here. I want to go right to the thing you mentioned earlier, which was the history and geography. What got you interested? What was the catalyst to get your degree in those studies?
Well, I've always, it's just sort of an innate thing that I basically have always liked the study of people and places and things. So history is, in high school, I had some very good history teachers, and in college, I also had very good history teachers. And, I just, it just caught on with me. I think one of our problems in this world is that we don't know history. I mean, we all know about computers and these space age type things, but we're all part of history. What I did 20 minutes ago is part of my history, and everybody has a history, and history goes into very many different areas. You can have cultural history, you can have geographic history, and it's a very fascinating subject. I have also kind of specialized in military history, which talks about all the wars in the world. So very, very interesting, dynamic subject.
I'm very curious about this topic. It's so funny when I'm a big fan of it. My brother-in-law is a huge fan of it. And somebody told me once a line that made me really pause and think about this. But it's especially when it comes to conflicts, wars especially. And, we coming from our perspective being, in the U.S., which is 5% of the world population. But he said to me, history is always written by the victors. The people who lose the wars, they don't really write the history. The only people that win establish the baseline. I keep thinking of like all the bad things we've done, I have friends in the Philippines, and watching MacArthur. I'm like, oh, MacArthur was our hero, but 60 years before that, we were slaughtering them left and right. It's interesting that there's so much history, we tend to forget it. Would you have a comment on that?
Well, history, talking about MacArthur, to the victor belongs the spoils. I mean, that's sort of a saying. So I'm a writer. So the characters in my book, I can make them do or say anything that I want them to do or say. So that's kind of the way history is. One fascinating fact, America as a country has been at war every year with the exception of about 15 to 16 years. Out of our whole history, we've always been fighting. So we're a very warlike country. We don't like to admit it. We have troops scattered from one end of the world to the other. We occupy countries. I mean, these are facts. And I think what we have to get away from is distinguishing fact from fiction. Fiction will lead you to a place that fiction goes. But truth will always be truth. I'm on your program right now. That's a true fact. Now, however you alter it, change it, or dictate it differently, it will always be a fact that I'm on your program right now. Our history has been one of a lot of deletions. We have a lot of deletions. We don't want to look at our history as a country, not true history. Now, we have a history that we feel real good about. But things happen in the world, and everything in the world is related to something else that happened in the world. Countries are just like people. You know, if I do something that's disrespectful to you, you're going to be upset about it. You may want to be vengeful about it. And so countries are pretty much the same. And if I take something from you, you will always say you disrespected me, and you will always have sort of an grievance against me. So those kinds of things we don't look at. I can give you some examples of history's deletion. You know, we have deleted a lot of history. Did you know that the Lone Ranger was based on an African-American character? Or every time you put a potato chip to your mouth, there was an African-American inventor, Mr. Crumb. So, you know, the White House was built by African-American slave labor. So these are things that we don't come to the fore with. And I think to deny my history, or to deny Native American history or Asian American history or anybody's history, is to deny it to all. For example, when I was in school, by not teaching true facts, the white kids in the class got the same facts I got. And it gives a sense of superiority and inferiority. If you take out the good things I've done and only leave the bad, then I'm going to be villainized. You're only seeing the things that weren't very good. But as I, being a historian, I've seen I'm very proud of who I am. If I died today, I'd come back as an African American. I'm glad of what my people have accomplished and what we have given to America. But I'm not only glad about what we've contributed, the Mexican Americans have contributed. The Asian Americans built the railroad, the coolies, they call them coolies, going out west. But they were discriminated against. So we have a situation where we only have upheld what white Americans have done. It's sort of a travesty in a way. When we look at TV, when did the last time you saw a 007 that was black, brown, or any other color but white?
I voted for Idris Elba. I think he'd be awesome at that role.
Yeah, I think so too. But now does he have a chance to do that? No.
Well, no. Now, don't you think nowadays things have gotten a little better though? I mean, certainly not Lone Ranger times.
Yeah,
we've had the African American president, and a lot of prominent people are coming up. So I think it's changing, don't you, or not?
No, I think right now we're in an inflection point in America that will change things for the better, or they'll go very bad very quickly. We're at a very serious inflection point on the environment, on racial issues, on the diseases. How we treat one another is right in the forefront of where we are. Right now we're in a situation where we have forest fires and people didn't listen to the scientists when they talked about a global warming. Now in the middle of a global pandemic, the lake mead is drying up. A lot of things are happening, and this is geography. Water is very important. And I'm fortunate enough to live right on Lake Michigan, on the shores of Lake Michigan. But if you're in Las Vegas, I have a sister in Las Vegas, and that's a serious situation. In California, serious situation, Arizona. So, but we didn't listen. Without water, what can you do? not much. You can't even live without it.
Yeah.
And
Note to developers: don't develop a city in a desert. That's certainly not, not the best
yeah,
idea. I got a question for you about history, and I was looking at somebody's meme the other day that said, of the 191 countries on the United Nations Security Council, England had invaded 171 of them. And I thought that was fascinating because they used to, conquer the world. But nowadays, countries have seemed to be able to kiss and make up a little bit, right? We're friends with Japan and Germany, just a couple decades after, a major bloody war. So if country can come together, why can't we do that as people? Or are we doing it? Or what's better? The question is, what's the way? What's the solution to come together as individuals if countries can do it?
okay, one is greed. Greed is one of the things that if I conquer you, I can then take your resources and I can become very wealthy from your resources. We have to. I'll tell you the one word that everybody ought to put on the edge of their tongue, and that's respect. Respect for the land, respect for other people, respect. And because we have such a abundant amount of disrespect, that is what starts wars, whether it's a country, whether it's your next door neighbor. A person that gets respect gives respect. And usually if you disrespect someone, there's a consequence of that. And many wars have been started over disrespect. Greed, you take slavery in America was greed. It's simple that the Europeans found a cheap source of labor, not cheap, a free source of labor, basically. And therefore, they took the labor, and so they made them very wealthy. The South of America and a lot of America was built on the backs of slave labor. And so we have to recognize these things and quit sticking our hand in the sand and saying that these things do not exist. They do exist. And until we recognize these things, until we honestly recognize these things, you have to look at your past. If I go out and I shoot somebody, then I'm a murderer at that point. I mean, in cold blood, I'm a murderer. So then I could turn around and say, no, I'm a great man. That doesn't make me a great man. I'm still a murderer. So, this is the way America have a myth, and it lives on myth, and it lives on a lot of untruths. And that's coming to the head now when you have people walking down the halls in your capital trying to overthrow a government. And it's simple. It's not a thing that that was an insurrection. Insurrection in some countries are handled very differently than what we handle them. We should.
Okay. I'm gonna play devil's advocate with you here for a moment, if I can.
Sure.
Okay. We all know that slaves built our country, our railroads, everything. I think that's known. I don't think anyone's hiding that. I don't think it's talked about a lot, but it's definitely a fact, and it's in all of our school books. So no one's hiding the fact that, slavery was a pretty big deal, and we were one of the last countries to stop it. So that's kind of well known. And respect is a huge thing. I think that's really important to do that. But my question was, what can we do right now? Awareness, I think awareness, in my opinion, is pretty good. But I think that people are focusing so much on the past, they forget about the present.
No, in the present moment, you said something about it's being taught. No, it is not being taught. If you go to the average high school, the history books haven't been rewritten. I was a teacher. That's another thing that I have been in my life. Yeah. So the history books that I saw were not, saying that Madam C.J. Walker was the first millionaire in America, woman, female.
No, I'm talking about the slavery issue, the slavery in the railroads. What I brought up.
Yeah, that we are making progress. But I had a teacher that said in one of my African American history book teachers, he said, if you got a 400-pound elephant, 500-pound elephant standing on your toe, it hurts to the second he takes his weight off of your foot. So that's kind of the way I think we are. Yeah, we make progress. But America, I think the first slaves came in the year 1619 or about that. So, and where are we now? in 2021, that's a long time. And we should have corrected many of America's
Oh yeah,
problems.
but again, I'm sorry, Sylvester. You're talking about the past. I want to know about today. What I can do tonight when I go out to make a difference.
You can do a simple thing.
Let's hear
Do
it.
unto others as you would have them do unto you.
It's
That would
all we
make you,
need.
that's all you need. And if we as human beings cannot get to that point. It's clear.
Yeah.
Do unto others. Don't do something to
Right.
me you wouldn't want done to you. And
Yeah.
if we live by that rule, I don't give what religion you are or where you come from.
Exactly.
If you live by that rule, that's why they call it the golden rule. And that
Right.
is that's just universal. If you do that,
It summarizes everything. 10 Commandments, the entire Bible. If you just do that one rule, it covers everything. It's foundational. I love it.
It does. It does. So you said that what can we do? We can start doing that.
Right.
We can stop being fearful of everything. We are very fearful. Fear motivates a lot of things that we do.
Sylvester, I have not watched the news as a habit in like 30 years because all I see is fear and trying to be afraid of immigrants or afraid of this, or I mean, it's horrible. And they use that to sell ads. I get it from a branding marketing standpoint, but ever since Walter Cronkite died, we've lost, there's no more news. It's all propaganda.
I always thought he should have been. I should have been a president. He was one of my favorite people. I think
Who's that?
Walter Cronkite should have been the president.
He's probably couldn't take the pay cut, but yeah, he was a gentleman and a scholar, right? It was just easy. Right.
But we have lost your moral compass. Okay, America is a very rich country. Okay.
Yep.
Very. It got rich in lots of different ways, but and it was blessed from the beginning because we had borders that protected us from invasion. The ocean protected us quite a bit. So it's a very gifted and rich country. I love my country. But what the average black or brown citizen says sometimes, does my country love me? I love my country. I think most African Americans and Native Americans, Asian Americans, they love America. But now, does America give the love that they get from the minorities? And I think that something we should start to look at. What are we teaching our kids? What's been omitted from our history books? Because I think our history books have omitted as much as it contains that is just and right. And
certainly,
that's where we can start. We can start today to write true history. That's today. I'm not talking about slavery and all that at this point. Yeah. Although my book starts out, every book that I've written in my 4-part series it started out with a dedication to the people who started this in the slave ship. That's where it starts.
Oh my gosh, I want to hear about your books now. I'd love to talk to you more about the history and geography of the world because that's just a fascinating topic. But I'm equally fascinated with this trilogy you've created. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it's beyond a trilogy because that's 3 books, and I'm just working on the 4th book I'm into.
Okay, well, so far, yeah.
Yeah, so far. Yeah. It's been well received. First couple of books have been 4-star awarded by readers' favorite. It's about my aunt who started, and my family started in Money, Mississippi. I don't know if anyone of your listeners know about Money, Mississippi, but it was the place where Emmett Till was killed and thrown in the Tallahatchie River, which flows through Money, Mississippi. And that was the spark that started the civil rights movement, period. That was before Martin Luther King. That was before Rosa Parks. That was before the marches. That's what started. It was the year 1955 that occurred. So my folks was from that little sleepy town in Mississippi. They all came north in the Great Migration, which is a historical fact. Negroes left the South because of the inhumane treatment in the South. It was a little better in the North. And so they all pulled up and took the train north. And so that's a big historical thing in the Black community, in any community. It changed the way America was. And during World War II, there were jobs that paid pretty good money compared to what was in the South, was picking cotton. So my aunt basically, she came to Chicago in the year 1937. She worked during World War II as Rosie the Riveter. A lot of Black people did and the brown people did. So we see a picture of Rosie the River, she's always white, but no, she's not always white. We contributed to the war effort just like everybody else. So that needs to be put into books, who we are. And don't take my time. I give the great explorers, the great white explorers, I give them every bit of credit and the things for their accomplishments. Okay, don't take mine. That's what I'm saying. And then that's what America has done. It has robbed a lot of us of our history in the books. So that's something we can do today is get with the people that write the books and write truth. Put if you don't put what I do that's good and great, I'm going to have a different opinion. And I'm going to think if you only show the negative things that I do, the negative images, and that's what you say you don't look at the news because we are vilified. Minorities in this country are vilified. The majority
and the news is by the I'm calling it propaganda now. It's designed to divide us. It's designed to create fear because that's what makes people want to watch it, and they sell more ads that way. It's because our nature, our limbic brain is designed to avoid danger, right? It's very primeval what they're doing. I study psychology a lot. It's like, this is why it works. They tried a good news station back in the 80s and nobody watched it, so it didn't work. So they have all the big red banners and they do anything to inflame us and make us, hate Trump or hate Biden or hate. They focus on the hate and fear, and that's what sells ads. So I'm a big champion for positive stories like yours. So I want to hear about the first book here. Want to hold that book up, the first one, The Road to Money?
There you go. You can see it good there, but that's it. It's kind of crooked, but that's my aunt the book started when she was 8 years old because naturally she didn't do too much before that age. And it starts with her coming into town with my great grandfather on an old wagon drawn by a mule. So the first book was all in Mississippi. It was all set in Mississippi. The second book is when she took the train north in the Great Migration. And it talks about, coming north. And one of the things in the book she couldn't understand, they went across the Mississippi River. And down south, she was never allowed to sit next to a white person. But when they crossed the river on the other side, it was okay. So those the little details of how, backwards racism is. And once racism is like a disease. It is a tumor that metastasizes as time goes on. And so that's one of the things America has to deal with. The other thing, I'm afraid for my country at this point. I'm very afraid in the year 2021 for my country. I love my country, but being a historian, if you're a historian, you will fear for America because democracy is not guaranteed. It is not something that you can take for granted. Maybe you did, but right now we have the type of citizens, an adversarial relationship. You got Democrats, you got Republicans. In some parts of the world, you have several different political parties. Here, if the Democrats are in, the Republicans are at their throats. And if the Republicans are in, the Democrats are at their throats. So we need to maybe look at some of the things that the laws that we have. One of my favorite things that I think that should be changed today is you don't appoint the Supreme Court justices for life. It's ridiculous. It's pathetic. And if you get a bad justice, you stuck with that justice for his lifetime, which could be 40 or 50 years.
But you understand the premise behind that. It was to prevent them having to politic to be reelected each time. So it's a lifetime appointment. If you make a good decision, they don't have to worry about politicking.
And how's that working for us? How does that work?
Well, I don't know. I guess it depends on your point of view on which way the court has. Every 2 or 3 terms, it shifts a little bit as people pass and as different presidents put that 1 or sometimes 2 people on. It tweaks a little bit, right? So it's not perfect.
But wouldn't it be better if they term? I'm not saying a short term, 10, 15 years. I mean,
I think the bigger term limit should be with our senators and congressmen.
Yeah, I think
start there.
Everything should be term limited. Nobody should be appointed to nothing for life because the other side of that thing is Corruption sits in. Who says justices are not corrupt? I mean, we got to. It's like having a broken car. It's making all kind of noise. The pistons are not hitting quite the way they should. The tires are kind of wobbly and out of line. And you drive it down the road, and you say, "There's nothing wrong with this car. This is the way it is. This is the way it." No, it always has been. But the car gets old. Things need to change in that car. You need to change the oil. You need new tires. The brakes go out. Well, same thing with a country. Same thing if you put it on a mechanical basis. So that's my theory of it. I think we definitely need to change our structures. A lot of them had to be looked at. What do you do with a rogue president? What do you do with that? It'll come again if you don't straighten it out. It's not a one-time thing. People learn. And my study of history takes me to Nazi Germany in 1930s. And those people said, a whole lot of people said, Sieg Heil. You know, so we're at a real inflection point in America. I hope that the good in the country wins out. I'm not sure of that, because around the world, if you put this on a world platform today, you have Turkey, you have Erdogan in Turkey, who is, a strong man. You have North Korea, strong man. You have Russia, strong man. Venezuela has changed, sort of a different type of government. I just got back from Cuba a little while ago. So I'm familiar with what goes on around the world. And if we don't get it together, we will have a strongman type of government. As simple as that. The people who are trying to change our government right now are very serious about that. One factor is that the racial dynamic in the country is changing. This will become a minority country. The minorities will have the numbers, and the majority white society will be outnumbered. That means outvoted. If you go one person, one vote.
Yeah.
That's the fear. That's the fear. That is why we don't touch it. That's the third rail. But I'm here to tell you what's going on. That is a lot of the things that we're going through with the Democrats and the Republicans right now.
Yeah.
Is a fear that the black and the brown people, are going to put the Caucasian males who have run this country for up until recently out of power. It's simple. It's power. It's about power. It's about money. Those two things that we're going through. Now, we can go so far with that, and we'll turn into a strongman type of government. And, we've had a president that really shouldn't have been president, as far as I'm concerned, but that's just my opinion. And it's people following myths and lies. It's not just about that. It's about even the vaccines. We can't even shoot ourselves. When I was a kid, and they had polio, everybody got a polio shot. No big deal. Everybody wanted it. This is something that's going to keep me from being sick. Mm-hmm. But now I'm not understanding. And when I went to school, my mom had to go to school, and you had to sign up, and you had to have all your shots for tetanus and diphtheria and all this good stuff to go to school. And if you didn't do it, you had a problem.
I'm going to play devil's advocate again, because I'm libertarian, in case you hadn't guessed. I like their extremes both bother me, but I keep thinking about people who've formed an opinion and think everybody else is wrong. And I used to be one of those people. I'm not anymore. I listen to people say, well, that makes sense. More people who are hospitalized were unvaccinated, so you should get vaccinated. But that doesn't mean I can't listen to their point of view. Like, well, gosh, this is an experimental vaccine. Polio vaccine had been tested for a decade before they rolled it out. This is brand spanking new. So should you mandate that if it's experimental, even though it's been approved recently? I don't know. My opinion is like, I think that it's smart to do it, but I wouldn't force somebody until 10 years from now or so, after it's been tested, because we don't know any side effects yet. It's too soon. So I don't know, man. I like challenging my own beliefs, I guess is my point.
I do too. And here's my opinion on it. Your rights when you make me sick, your rights at that point, you don't have the right to make other people sick. If you're vaccinated, if you're carrying something or could carry something that makes another person sick, your right ended that right at the point you infected someone else.
If you're vaccinated, how could I get you sick?
Pardon?
If you're vaccinated, how can an unvaccinated person hurt that person?
An unvaccinated person can get sick and then to spread the disease. They become carriers.
To
It's
who?
like
To who?
you can spread it to anybody because we're just getting through the
Wait a minute.
first.
Wait, hold on a second. Follow the logic here. If you're unvaccinated, can you affect a vaccinated person? If so, what's the point of the vaccine?
Well, you can't. But here again, what would we have had not this vaccine been developed?
No,
I
want to answer. I'm trying to focus on the point. I'm not arguing. I'm just discussing.
Yeah, yeah.
But if somebody's like forcing people to do a medical procedure, is that's what Mengele did in Germany, all right? So if somebody is vaccinated, they're protected. If somebody's unvaccinated, they choose that. Say they're Amish, right? And they go to a train station. How can an unvaccinated person harm somebody who's vaccinated? If they're vaccinated, they should be vaccinated. If it doesn't work, then what's the point?
Nothing is.
It's a circular reference.
Nothing is 100%. There's what they call breakthrough cases. There's nothing that's 100%. So you got maybe 5, maybe 6% of the vaccine is maybe not effective in that particular person. But the cemetery, now, Vietnam, we thought that was bad. How many people have died of COVID and compared to the war? This is a terrible scourge on us. And if we don't get away from our individual, I'm American and I can do what I want, and government can't tell me nothing. Hey, it's a lot of those people I have lost personally in my family, an aunt and cousins. So I know that this stuff is real. And I would hate to think I would lose my kids to it. It's real. And here's another thing about the disease. It doesn't care whether you're black. It don't care whether you're white. It don't care whether you're rich. It don't care whether you're fat. It don't care. It doesn't care. It's a disease. It's looking for a host. And that virus has the power to kill you. So now that in my little mind, I may not be an Einstein, but I put 2 and 2 together. I would rather get a shot any day of the week than take a chance. It's like putting a gun to your head, Russian roulette. I put the gun to my head and I hope it don't go off. Because if it goes off, I'm through. And a lot of people in the cemetery, and they're going every day. They're still. And here's another thing: the people who are unvaccinated are dying, and the people who are vaccinated are not dying as quickly. I'm not saying there's no breakthrough cases. It's not 100%, but I'll take my odds at 90%, 10% breakthrough. That's okay. I mean, it's 90% is a pretty good number.
Very good. And I'm just fascinated by the conversations, and I love hearing everybody's opinion on it because it's fun to listen to people and find out what their belief systems are and how they think. It's interesting to me. So I don't want to get too much in the vaccine thing. I want to talk more about your books, of course, if you don't mind.
I'm a little more of an expert on my books than I am on vaccines.
Yeah, everybody's an expert on vaccines now that we're in this pandemic, of course. But so this was based on your aunt's life, right? The books.
It's 75.
But you said you mixed a little bit of fiction with fact with it.
Yeah, it's 75% fact, about 25% fiction. And the only reason I have that 25% in there is that she gave me the bricks, my family gave me the bricks, and I had to put the mortar to make the bricks come together, connective tissue, basically. So nice. It really is she was quite the lady. She stood on the Great Wall of China. She traveled to Vietnam. She was a world traveler. That's what I got my love of travel.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So it's called The Road to Money, folks. It's a beautiful book. I can't wait to get these. I want to get them myself. Right now, there's one publisher, all 3. What's out right now?
All 3 is out. Well, I'm on number 4.
All 3 are out.
I'm on number 4.
Nice. In the show notes below, we've got links to Sylvester's website and his books. They sound fascinating. I can't wait to read them. It's a true story about his aunt going from the 20s up till she's still with us.
2009. She actually died about 3 days after Obama was elected.
Oh my gosh, you got to see it at least. Yeah.
She kept saying, I'm going to see first black president, and she made it. He was elected for 3 days, and then she passed away. So I couldn't have wrote that in a Hollywood script.
No, that's like closing credit here. I want to see a man of color make the White House. Oh, okay, good. No,
you're right. And she was 91. She was 91 years old when she passed away.
Oh, wonderful.
So, and what I tried to do is put music. The book puts the music in. Louis Armstrong is in there. There's juke joints in there. There's picnics in there. There's assassinations of Kennedy in the book. I mean, I cover history. She is the foreground. Background is the music, the characters, the history of America. She's moving through America from the age of 8 years old all the way up to 91 years old.
So what's right? It's like a Black woman Forrest Gump. I love it. Right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a true story that,
Yeah.
And I think here again, I think there's a lot of my aunts, but not everybody goes to a millionaire. She was in real estate. And the reason she succeeded, now here's something. She could have not done what she had done, but her husband that she married, Sidney, my uncle Sidney, he passed for a white person. And so he was able to buy real estate, okay, with the restricted covenants and everything the country did to keep Black people from owning. When he passed away, they were together 11 years. He passed away and naturally the property went to him. Then there was another thing in the book about a Jewish lady who lived next to them with a neighbor, and upon her death, she had a land contract to buy the building, and when she died, she put in her will that there would be no further payments due on that property. So now she had two. So I mean, she got breaks in life, but she got around racism. Black people have to always get around. It's like a game that we have to play. My mother, we have to be smarter. We got to work harder, and we got to work longer. And that's a shame, because here's another thing: you lose something and you don't know what you lost by holding people back. If I hold a little Mexican kid back, what would that kid could have become? Could have been a great author. Could have been a great doctor.
It's the biggest travesty of human existence is unfulfilled potential. Man, that's a beautiful statement, sir. Absolutely true. I've had run-ins with my kids' teachers, and I've heard them say things that sounded innocent to them, but to me it was like putting a knife in my kid's chest. And I'm like, I want to call a teacher up and just ream her a new one. It's like, you don't tell a kid they're no good or they can't do something. I mean, let them go through life, and when they're 45, they can come to that conclusion on their own. But when they're kids, they can do whatever they want. You've got to encourage them at any age, certainly, but especially when they're young.
The reason that my family I was always taught education is the key to the door, and if you don't have the key, sometimes you can't get in. They didn't mean that if you didn't go to Harvard or Yale that you couldn't get in. It meant that you could take a trade, you could do, but you had to be educated in some way. You could go to Harvard. Now, I do have a nephew who's a PhD in biochemistry. He works for the government. I have another brother who can speak 5 languages, including Farsi. I have my sister and another brother who are principals of a school. So it paid off for me. I guess I'm doing something right. But
you got a smart family. That's good.
And that came from, now you got to think, we can't make excuses. Well, we're Black and we can't do it. Excuses never get anything done. Excuses, my mother used to say, is worth a dime a dozen. The excuses are the tool of the incompetent. If you do the things you're supposed to do, then you won't have to make the excuse in the first place. So that's the way I was raised. It was pretty stern in a way, but we had to. If I came back again, I'd choose the same family. I was very, very fortunate to have the family that I was born into.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
If I didn't like what my mother did, I go to my grandmother. If I didn't like my grandmother, I went to my father or stepfather. And it was so extended. I probably had 20 or 30 relatives, cousins, uncles, aunts, and nobody let me fall. And it was back in the day when you were held accountable for what you did.
Yeah.
One of the things that we have a problem with now is there's no accountability in any way, shape, or form for anybody. Kids are not held responsible. We can go into Capitol and people seem not to be held responsible to the degree they should be. So these are the kinds of things that will lead a country to fall. Now, I've read about a lot of the Roman Empire. Nazi Germany. I could give you a list of countries that fell from within, not from without. You countries usually get soft in the middle and then fall into the center.
We may have had our time. We'll see. I hope I'm around when things are good and I don't see anything get serious. But I'm with you. It's hard to see a whole lot of good yet. I gotta, you know what? That's my closing statement to you, sir. Is like, you know what? We see a lot of crap out there, so we have to go back to what you said about respect and the golden rule. And as Maya Angelou said, let's be the change that we want to see in the world.
That's the way it's got it. That we have to. Change starts with me, and change starts with you. And you know, yeah, don't point to. Usually, when you point the finger to somebody else, there's a bunch of fingers pointing back at you.
That's right. I love that one. Yeah. With that being said, we got to cut out, man. We're going a little over. That's okay because I don't have any commercial breaks. We just like to put the show out here. But folks, this has been Sylvester Boyd, author of The Road from Money. It's a brilliant portrayal.
Hello?